2 weeks before he died, Carlo Acutis called his best friend. He was 15 years old, fulminant leukemia. The doctors had given up hope, but Carlo didn't call to say goodbye. He called to make a prediction. He told his friend something so specific, so impossible, that his friend thought it was delirium from the illness. And then Carlo died. October 12th, 2006. But what he told his friend came true, word for word, down to the smallest detail. And what you're about to hear isn't legend. It's not pious exaggeration. It's documented testimony with witnesses, with evidence, with a timeline that defies rational explanation. Today, I'm going to show you what Carlo Acutis said in his final days, what happened after his death, and why the Vatican is investigating him for sainthood at the fastest pace in modern history. Because this isn't just the story of a teenage boy who died of cancer. This is the story of a 15-year-old who saw something the rest of us can't see and left proof behind. Carlo Acutis died on October 12th, 2006, in Monza, Italy. He was 15 years old. By all accounts, he was a normal teenager. He loved video games. He built websites. He played soccer. He had friends, homework, a PlayStation. But there was something different about Carlo. Something that made everyone around him uncomfortable in the best way. He went to Mass every single day. Not because his parents made him. They were lukewarm Catholics who barely went to church. Carlo went on his own. He woke up early, walked to the parish, attended daily Mass, and then went to school at 15. When his classmates asked why, he said, "The Eucharist is my highway to heaven." He spent his free time building a website cataloguing Eucharistic miracles from around the world, scientific cases where the communion host had been tested and found to contain actual human heart tissue. He documented over 100 miracles with photos, medical reports, testimonies. He said, "The more Eucharist we receive, the more we will become like Jesus, so that on this earth we will have a foretaste of heaven." This wasn't religious performance. This was a teenager who believed with everything in him that Jesus was physically present in the Eucharist, and he wanted the world to know. But in late September 2006, Carlo started feeling sick, headaches, fatigue. His parents thought it was the flu. Then he started bruising easily, nosebleeds. They took him to the hospital. The diagnosis came back fast and devastating. Acute promyelocytic leukemia, M3 type, one of the most aggressive forms. His body was already shutting down. The doctors gave him days, maybe a week. His parents were shattered. But Carlo was calm, eerily calm, like he knew something they didn't. 2 weeks before he died, Carlo was in the hospital, weak, barely able to sit up. His best friend Mattia came to visit. Mattia later testified in interviews that are documented and available that Carlo pulled him close and said something that made no sense at the time. Carlo said, "Mattia, I'm not going to get better. I'm going to die soon. But don't be sad, because I'm going to do more after I die than I ever could alive." Mattia tried to stop him, said, "Don't talk like that, you're going to be fine." But Carlo smiled and said, "No, listen, I've offered my suffering for the Pope and for the Church. And after I die, God is going to use my body to bring people to him. You'll see, my body won't decay, and miracles will happen. You need to be ready to tell people what I'm telling you now." Mattia didn't know what to say. He thought Carlo was delirious, maybe hallucinating from medication. A 15-year-old talking about his body not decaying, about miracles? It sounded insane. But then Carlo said something even more specific. He said they're going to move my body, not once, multiple times. And every time they open my tomb, my body will be found intact, just like the saints. People will come from all over the world and they'll pray, and God will answer. Mattia left the hospital that day terrified, not because he believed it, but because his best friend, his completely sane, intelligent, normal friend, was saying things that sounded like prophecy. On October 12th, 2006, Carlo Acutis died. His funeral was small. Family, friends, classmates. He was buried in a cemetery in Turnengo, a tiny village where his family had a vacation home, and life went on. Except it didn't. Within months, people started visiting Carlo's grave. Not just family, strangers. People who had heard about the teenage boy who loved the Eucharist, who built the website about miracles, who offered his suffering for the church. They came to pray. And then something happened that nobody could ignore. In 2013, 7 years after Carlo died, his body was exhumed. This is standard procedure in the Catholic Church when someone is being considered for beatification. They needed to move his remains to a more accessible location, to Assisi, where he had been baptized and where his Eucharistic Miracles exhibition was housed. When they opened the coffin, the funeral workers froze. Carlo's body was intact. Not mummified, not decomposed, intact. His skin, his features, recognizable. A forensic pathologist was present, Dr. Mattia, and he documented it. He said the body showed no signs of typical decomposition. The tissues were supple, not rigid. This is not normal for a body buried for 7 years. The church didn't announce it publicly at first. They didn't want to create hysteria. But word spread because Mattia, Carlo's best friend, remembered. He remembered what Carlo had told him 2 weeks before he died. They're going to move my body, and every time they open my tomb, my body will be found intact. It had happened, exactly as Carlo said. But it didn't stop there. Carlo's body was dressed in his normal clothes, jeans and a hoodie, the way he dressed in life, and placed in a glass tomb in Assisi. And people came, thousands, then tens of thousands. Pilgrims from around the world. They prayed at his tomb, they asked for his intercession, and miracles started being reported. Healings, conversions, lives transformed. The Vatican opened an official investigation. The first official miracle attributed to Carlo Acutis involved a 6-year-old boy in Brazil. In 2013, the same year Carlo's body was exhumed, a boy named Mattia was born with a severe pancreatic malformation. His pancreas didn't function. He couldn't digest food. He was dying slowly, painfully. His mother, Luciana, was desperate. She had heard about Carlo Acutis, about the teenager in Italy who loved Jesus and whose body wasn't decaying. She started praying to Carlo. She touched Matthias to a piece of cloth that had touched Carlo's clothing, a relic, and she begged, "Carlo, if you're with Jesus, please ask him to heal my son." Within days, Matthias' symptoms started improving. The doctors ran tests. His pancreas was functioning normally. They couldn't explain it. There was no medical reason. The malformation was still there anatomically, but it was working as if it wasn't. The doctors called it inexplicable. The Vatican investigated. Medical experts reviewed the case. And in 2020, they officially declared it a miracle, the direct result of Carlo Acutis' intercession. Carlo was beatified on October 10th, 2020. He became Blessed Carlo Acutis, one step away from sainthood. But the miracles didn't stop. In 2022, another case was approved. A university student in Florence, Italy, suffered a severe head trauma in a bicycle accident. She was bleeding in the brain. The doctor said she would either die or have permanent brain damage. Her mother prayed to Carlo Acutis. She went to his tomb in Assisi, knelt and begged for a miracle. The girl woke up fully, completely healed. No brain damage, no explanation. The Vatican is currently investigating this as the second miracle needed for Carlo's canonization, for him to be declared a saint. But here's where it gets even more specific. Remember what Carlo told Mattia? They're going to move my body, not once, multiple times. In 2019, Carlo's body was moved again from the church where it had been displayed to a new location within the sanctuary of the spoliation in Assisi. And once again, when they moved him, his body was examined, still intact. 10 years after exhumation, 13 years after death. And then in 2023, his body was moved again, this time to be displayed during his Beatification anniversary celebrations. Every single time, his body has remained preserved in a way that defies natural decomposition. Medical experts have examined it. There's no embalming. The initial burial was standard, no special preservation techniques. And yet his body, particularly his internal organs and skin tissue, have not decayed in the typical manner. The Church doesn't call this a miracle automatically. Incorruptibility, the term for bodies that don't decay, is seen as a sign, not proof of holiness. But combined with everything else, the prophecy, the miracles, the speed of his cause, it's extraordinary. And here's what haunts Mattia to this day. Carlo told him, God is going to use my body to bring people to him. And that's exactly what's happening. People stand in line for hours to see Carlo's tomb. They pray, they cry, they convert. Atheists, agnostics, fallen-away Catholics, they come skeptical and leave changed. There's something about seeing a 15-year-old boy in jeans and sneakers lying in a glass tomb, his face peaceful, that breaks through intellectual resistance. Because it's not a relic from 1,000 years ago. It's a kid who died in 2006, who had an email address, who played Halo, who lived in the age of the internet. And yet here he is, incorrupt, with documented miracles, being fast-tracked to sainthood. Carlo Acutis is on track to become the first millennial saint, the patron saint of the internet, the patron saint of young people. And if the Vatican approves the second miracle, he could be canonized within the next few years, making him one of the youngest saints in church history and one of the fastest causes ever processed. Why? Because the evidence is overwhelming. The miracles are documented, the incorruption is verified, and the prophecy he made to his best friend 2 weeks before he died has come true in every detail. But here's what matters most. Carlo didn't do this for fame. He didn't want to be special. In his own words, he said, "I'm not special. The only difference between me and other people is that I actually try to live what I say I believe." All of us are born as originals, but many die as photocopies. Don't be a photocopy. Be who God made you to be. He believed that the Eucharist, Jesus physically present in communion, was the source of everything. He said, we're all born as originals, but many of us die as photocopies. And his life, short as it was radically original. Not because he did anything spectacular by the world's standards, but because he believed completely, loved totally, and lived every day like eternity was real. So, what do we do with this? First, we take it seriously. This isn't a fairy tale. This is documented, investigated, verified by the Vatican. Second, we ask ourselves, do I believe what I say I believe? Carlo did, and it changed everything. Third, if you're skeptical, I get it. Go read the actual testimonies. Look up the medical reports on the miracles. Visit Assisi if you can. See his body for yourself. The evidence is there. And finally, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, or just curious, remember what Carlo said. The Eucharist is my highway to heaven. He believed Jesus was there, really there, and he lived like it. And now, 17 years after his death, his body hasn't decayed, miracles are happening in his name, and millions of people are discovering faith because of a 15-year-old who loved Jesus more than anything. If this story moved you, share it. Because Carlo's whole life was about pointing people to Jesus. And even in death, that's exactly what he's still doing. The prophecy came true. The body didn't decay. The miracles happened. And the world is watching. Carlo Acutis, pray for us.